growing up, I loved to perform. Being on stage and performing felt like the most natural thing in the world. And I was a bold performer. I was never fearful, never got nervous. It was actually the opposite. Being on stage brought out the best in me, even better than what I could produce in the practice room. So you may not be a pianist, but can relate to this kind of feeling, where what you do might look like hard work to other people, but for you, it's your passion. It comes easily to you, and it's an escape that you can't wait to sink your teeth in. As a child, I dreamed of becoming an artist and performing professionally, and I get to do that now, and I feel so incredibly lucky. But along the way, I went from being a bold performer into developing crippling stage fright, coupled with bouts of intense anxiety and depression around performing. So who can relate to this? You were once fearless in your pursuit, but then something happened and you became fearful and anxious and depressed around the very thing that you love to do. I'm here to tell you what fear tries to steal from you and how you can get it back so you can get back to enjoying what you love to do. When I was younger, I had an extraordinary piano teacher. Her name was Elena Arseniev. And in our lessons, she was always talking to me about the sound and how to produce magic in this sound. The sound is the core of everything that I do as an artist and a musician. It's what gives those black dots on the page, which are the notes, and the piece of wood that is my instrument, any kind of meaning. And creating meaningful sound is all that matters in music. The opposite of focusing on the sound are things that sometimes we get caught up in. Getting distracted, trying to impress people, worrying about our egos. Elena inspired me, encouraged me to use my creativity and imagination to create these stories and dialogue with characters and vivid imagery to make this wonderful music that I love so much come alive. But most importantly, she truly believed in me as both a person and an artist. She inspired me to trust in my gift. Then I went off to college, and I met a professor who was the complete opposite of Elena, and he was a bully. So I thought bullies had left my life in 5th grade permanently, but come to find out, I would meet one again face-to-face in college, and he would come in the form of a professor, and he was a bully. He put me down every single time he saw me. He humiliated me in front of my peers and other faculty members. But worse still, he used the piano, my passion, as a tool to attack my character. Around this time, I started to doubt myself. I started having bad performances. And I really just wanted to give up. So there I was, miserable, and having to decide whether or not I should continue. But the thing was, I remembered how much I loved performing, and I remembered how great it felt. And I thought if I worked really hard, I could get that feeling back somehow. And then I wouldn't let this one person take this from me. So you know what I did? This is when we cue the Rocky comeback music, okay? Because I went for it. I moved to New York City, I got my master's, and then I dove deep into becoming that artist that I always wanted to become. I worked on interesting projects, I worked with amazing artists that I followed for years, I performed in venues that I dreamed of performing in as a child. I did it. I was living the dream. Everything was great. I showed him. Yeah, I did it. I was living the dream. Except, you saw this coming, right? Except I wasn't. I really wasn't, because the truth was this. I was scared the entire time. Every time I walked on stage, I was terrified. And I always thought to myself, this is when they'll figure out that he was right about me. The key to performing at your highest levels and getting back what fear took from you, which for the record is your confidence, your joy, your pride, grit, daring, is this. You have to give yourself permission to believe in people again, even though people may not have always believed in you. What Professor Bully took from me was this fearlessness that I had in knowing that I'm worthy of being on this stage. But I have to admit that I didn't get to this realization on my own. I worked really hard, and it took a long time of learning and trying new things and experimenting. And one thing that was really pivotal and life-changing for me was this meditation exercise called Performing Beyond Fear, and it was created by Madeline Bruiser. And in this meditation exercise, you focus on some core principles, and one principle that was the most transformational for me was called basic goodness of audience. Basic goodness of audience is thinking about what and who your audience is, why they come, and what you want to give them. What Professor Bully did was he systematically instilled in me this idea of a hypercritical audience that was just waiting to see me fall flat on my face. Because that's who he was for me. I began to see everybody like that, not just in audiences, but in all areas of my life. The key, though, is that I had to remember that people come to performances because they want to be moved and inspired. They're not there to see failure. They expect beauty. And I get this in a way that I never had before. Because when I first did this meditation, Performing Beyond Fear, it brought to mind people who've written me and expressed how much they enjoyed a particular performance of mine. And I remember a lot of those times feeling like I didn't perform well at all. There was this one time that I was performing a piece written for me by this composer who was in the audience, and I was a nervous wreck. And I remember feeling so badly about how this performance went, and I was so embarrassed. Come to find out later, I found out that this one audience member was incredibly moved by this particular piece. And he even thought I was so elegant and calm, when I was really shaking like a leaf inside. This person had a completely different elevated experience than the one I was having in my head. He had come to the performance expecting to be moved, so he was. I wonder what would happen if we could trust in ourselves that we'd always be this effective. Well, we'd be effective. It's easy to remember all the bad experiences and the people who've hurt you. Professor Bully was not the only person and will not be the only person who's put me down in my life. And I suspect that for many of you, you may come across people like this in your lives as well. The key is to not allow things to be taken from us. But if they are, we must decide to regain what was lost and actively work towards that. I have confidence now in knowing the basic goodness of the audience and that they come to be moved and inspired by the music that I create. They're not there to judge me whether, if things don't go perfectly or if I make mistakes. I wonder what would happen if we could always believe in people this way. And sure, there may be people in the audience who do want to see me fail. I have no idea of knowing, and maybe there'll always be people like that. But I understand the basic goodness of the audience that I want to serve and that I'm performing for. And I also understand, for the first time, the basic goodness that I have in myself and wanting to create that sound and magic that Elena had taught me all those years ago. That at the core, I want to move and inspire people through music. And in everything I want to do in my life, that's what I want to do. So I'm going to admit something to you. I came here thinking I was going to play something super flashy for you, because for years, I thought this is how I needed to prove myself. But I don't do that anymore, and I only play stuff that I like. And I love this piece, Little Midnight Nocturne by Fred Hirsch, and it has this sound, and it's so beautiful. In the opening passage, I want you to imagine being alone on a quiet street on a dark, foggy evening, and hearing this quiet and stillness that is the beauty of this world. And I hope that you're moved and inspired by it. you.